more that you can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.
Yes. Welcome to all of those who are visiting us on the social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Welcome all. This is the monster issue. It's the monster issue in humanity at a time where it feels like, certainly in the West, that things are spiraling out of control. We talk an awful lot about justice and fairness and equity and things that are supposed to be compared to what they are. And we don't seem to be talking enough about why people get animated the way they do. And this is it. This is the monster issue. What are you carrying into your adulthood that was imprinted upon you during your youth that drives involuntary activity, involuntary response, unresolved childhood trauma? And let's be specific about that. We're not just talking about the experiences from which you may have derived your worldview completely. We're talking about things that happened that have hampered your ability to adapt a worldview, that have hampered your ability, my ability, to entertain alternative ideas. What happened to me when I was a boy that caused me to engage the world and encode certain experiences driven by shame or driven by fear and by seething kind of contempt toward other people? What are those events that occurred that caused me only one conclusion about another human being or circumstance? These are the questions that are worthy of asking oneself when considering why I might be feeling discomfort. So let's talk about what constitutes events that have deeply imprinted on human beings in their childhood that might animate or drive future behavior. I'm no psychologist, but I read like other people, and I've made a lot of observations in the course of my career as an emergency responder, as a supervisor of response personnel, and as someone who has tried to help build constructive programs in supporting people in crisis. If I had to call out one experience that probably animates behavior in a non-constructive way, it's got to be shame. That's just my personal opinion. I know that opinion is shared by many others. When I was a kid growing up, I remember on public television, when public television would produce shows like this, the great John Bradshaw, The Shame That Binds You, was a presentation that they put out there about how events where kids encode deep shame wind up becoming central to how kids grow up into adults facing certain situations. And in the space in which we work at Jumpstart, where we're routinely providing training and education to workforce members that provide very important services to youth, very important services to people in involuntary detention or correction settings, very important services to their community. It's interesting to see how people resonate with the idea that what happened to them as a youngster may have evolved into a way that they navigate the world today. I can't tell you. I mean, there's the natural tendency that human beings have to want to avoid the discomfort of shame, but you can see that in varying ways in the way people show up. Have you ever met someone who can never be wrong? Ever. They can never be wrong. They will vehemently deny that they were wrong. What do you think they're associating with the idea of being wrong? What do you think they're associating with the idea that admission that they were incorrect, what that does to them? Have you ever met someone who is incredibly defensive upon hearing an alternative idea? Won't even let you get the idea out, and they're already in there defending against it. My sponsor, I love the phrases that my sponsor uses when we talk. You know, I used to fight everybody and everything that he says, and I can identify with that experience. Maybe you can too. But there are some people who feel that it is an impossibility. They are unable to articulate an admission that someone else was correct. Like something happens to them personally if they do. And it's funny, those are the same people that say, I'm the first one to raise my hand and admit when I was wrong. Oh, I see. Well, when was the last time that happened? Because when presented with an alternative idea, what I see is that you really just want to be heard rather than understand anything else, which is, I think, one of the reasons why, was it St. Francis? It is greater to understand than to be understood. You know, one of the core attributes of meaningful crisis de-escalation is this idea of lending understanding first. And in that lending of understanding first, let's say the truth of another human being, how it's coming out, can be perceived. If someone were in crisis and acting in a completely contemptible way were in front of me, and I had a duty to respond to this person and de-escalate, what would be the value of shoving their face in the idea that their belief is wrong? Hey man, you're just wrong about it. That's not true. That's not blue. There aren't nanobots coming out of that shower head. That didn't happen just now. Yet what do we see on the algorithms? What do we see on the incidents that get caught on video? People vehemently defending their perception or what they believe. Now, here's what we know. And God, Plato and Aristotle wrote about it. The medium by which human beings communicate non-verbally and verbally is an imperfect medium. It's an imperfect language is imperfect. Its use its use by human beings is imperfect. A human being may have an idea and then engage in the use of English language to articulate the idea. The receiver is not able to be in the mind of the sender. So the receiver's ability to understand what's going on in the mind of the sender is only through their command of language. You ever hear the Sapir-Whorf theory about communication? That thoughts, concepts are constructed. The phrase actually escapes me, but the notion of the quote is that thoughts and concepts are constructed in words. And it's only through your command of language that you're able to better communicate concepts and thoughts. That language is everything. So imagine experiencing a number of deeply imprinting events in your youth that are so uncomfortable that you don't want to talk about them. And now you're in front of a counselor trying to figure out why you can't be in relationship with other people, why these events are recurring in your life that have these negative outcomes. And you have no practice of applying language to this feeling state. This is going to be hard. This is not an easy journey to unpack the discomfort of events that occurred in my childhood that shape how I act in the world today. This is why therapy doesn't take 10 minutes. And this is why it's a lifetime, a journey of attempting to get a moment of choice, as Viktor Frankl would say, a moment of choice between what it is you're feeling and what it is you're going to do. How many interactions do you think you conduct on a daily basis where there's very little direct thought about the interaction? It's super high speed. You're not in there deciding what you're going to say or do. It just happens. We rely on that attribute of how people communicate. We rely on the natural high speed interactivity. What happens when you have to be deliberate? What happens if you feel something? Do you have to act on it? Does the traumatic event, must it drive what happens next in you, in me? What are some childhood traumas that shaped my development? I grew up with a lot of fear, an extraordinary desire to be liked, and in the desire to not feel fear, I did things to create conditions of acceptance by other people so I could be liked. Why? Because I really had a tendency to, because I'm a people person? No, because I didn't want to feel the fear. So I developed this approach to engaging the world where I needed to have everybody like me so I could avoid not feeling irrelevant. Where did I encode feeling irrelevant? I don't know. I love my parents. I worship my dad. My dad had a lot of things that I don't do as a father. He did a lot of things with me that I don't do. And if he were here next to me, and I wish he was, he'd probably agree that he wishes he could have done some things differently. He was a master at his craft. He was dedicated to his art form. That was what was most important to him. In fact, after he died, I found a journal entry where he spoke to that. And there was a period of time where we didn't talk. And I contributed to that as much as him. And I remember he wrote about that. And he actually said, I stand here estranged from my son for the stupidest of reasons. And his contribution to that was that he was so committed to his art form as a way of distinguishing himself in a family setting that he did not like being in, to help carve a way out. And in doing that, it's all he knew how to do was practice and play and teach and practice and play and teach. That was my experience of Dad. We didn't have family vacations and things that lots of other family members did. I saw extraordinary commitment to your craft or your calling, whatever that is, and everything else fell by the wayside. That shaped how I showed up in the world. It shaped who I am today. And I've tried to unpack to some degree the parts of that have not helped my relationships. It takes courage there's no escaping the discomfort. There's no way of going back and, hey, let's unpack that and all of that kind of meme bullshit that people say to one another, sometimes in a sarcastic way. Unpacking shit is uncomfortable. There's no way of escaping the refeeling of old injury. No way. At some point, if you want to square with the trauma so that it doesn't drive what you do, you have to go refeel it. Even EMDR does this, for God's sake. And then it separates the stimulus from the response. That's why it reports pretty high efficacy in terms of its use with trauma. But it's guided by someone who has to take you back to where it happened. There's no escaping that. So, if anything, I would want anyone listening to me to want to consider the following. If you think that you did not experience deeply imprinted events in your life that shape how you show up in the world today, you're mistaken. This is supported by the data, and it's supported by pre-data collection periods in human history, philosophy. It can be understood to where you have a moment of choice between the feeling and the doing. There's no way of escaping the feeling of discomfort in the going back to unpack it. The moment you accept that and get to work, the discomfort of doing it isn't uncomfortable anymore. It's just part of the experience. There's no escaping it. So get to it. Get to it. Lean into the discomfort. As the great Tony Blauer would say, if you can't lean into managing your fear, you can't manage the fight. If you can't lean into managing your fear, you're not going to be able to de-escalate. So go lean into the fear, and I'll do it with you. I hope you've had a good few minutes with this conversation. I know I have, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Take care.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
More that you can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.